I am an immigrant. I am the grandson of immigrants. My wife and children are immigrants. Every year, millions of families around the world made the difficult decision to leave their homeland in search for a better future. If there is one thing that characterizes human beings over thousands of years of history, it's our constant migrations. Since I was a Deputy Minister of Public Health, the President tasked me to establish ties with the Catholic Church in New York City to spearhead projects that will improve our hospital administration and their ability to acquire medication. Sometime later, Cardinal O'Connor and my friend Mario Paredes offered me the opportunity to do my specialty in the United States, to work there as a doctor and administer the social programs for the church in New York, where there was a large Dominican population whose level of poverty was a great concern. Then arose an unexpected opportunity that I never could have anticipated. Such are the paths God holds in store for us. Doors that we never even knocked on suddenly open, and it's up to us to cross the threshold. I traveled to New York City with my wife Inez and our children. We left behind our roots, our family, and our country with endless Caribbean summers, and arrived in a city that welcomed us with a snowstorm. As the saying goes, after a storm comes the calm. So I thought to myself, after a welcome like this, everything else will be much easier. The reality, it wasn't true. Even with all the support we received, we endured 1,000 difficulties. I didn't know English, had to go back to college. I didn't have much savings or resources. We had a baby girl and a 14-month baby boy. But my wife and I were young and willing to embark on this adventure. I have been a very fortunate man to have such an incredible companion at my side. We had a deep desire to go further in life, to grow. During this difficult time, I scrubbed floors along with other doctors. This helped us financially. But at St. Clair Hospital, I had an experience that transformed my life forever. And that will help me face the COVID-19 pandemic nearly 30 years later. In the early 90s, St. Clair Hospital, which was directed by the Catholic Church in New York, was the only hospital in the city that would treat patients with AIDS. At St. Clair Hospital, 90% of the patients had AIDS. Most of the doctors who worked with those patients were immigrants, since many Caucasian professionals were opposed to work at that hospital because of the nature of the disease. It was devastating to witness the deaths of so many young men, many of them from the art world, especially when we couldn't do anything to save them. We were at great risk of contracting HIV. You have to understand that at that time, a doctor who was accidentally poked with a needle will have to suffer throughout months of treatment just to find out if he or she had contracted the virus or not. But we did it because it was our duty, our calling. And from my Catholic point of view, I saw it as a way for me to help those who were weak. Only after 1996, when a special budget was approved and all of the economic resources appeared, most of the hospitals were happy to accept patients with HIV. But before that, only the Catholic Church and the Cardinal will assume that task without hesitation. The experience of fighting the HIV/AIDS epidemic as a doctor on the front line strengthened my experience and most of all, strengthened my faith. When I was a child, in my heart, I felt the calling to be a doctor. So I had to give up another dream I had, to be a baseball player. However, everything comes back to us in life, and fate has led me to the world of sport time and time again. In 1998, at the request of Cardinal O'Connor, I entered into contact with my fellow countryman, the Dominican home run king, Sammy Sosa. to get him to visit our Latino communities and transmit a message of hope, resilience, and leadership, values that are very important for any immigrant. A few days later, the Cardinal asked me to travel to Cuba on a humanitarian mission to facilitate a highly anticipated reunion with the Cuban pitcher, Orlando El Duque Hernandez, with his family for the final game of the season. El Duque had left this country a year early, in 1997, and Fidel Castro's regime had branded him as a traitor. He was prohibited from returning to Cuba, and his family didn't have the authorization to leave the island. I traveled to Havana with Mario Paredes to meet with Fidel Castro and hand-delivered a personal letter from the Cardinal requesting a travel permit. You are probably wondering, what's the doctor doing engaging in high-level diplomatic relations? You must remember that for years, the only effective diplomacy with Fidel Castro government was that the Catholic Church. Only the Catholic Church could get Castro to free political prisoners or agree to grant exit visas for humanitarian reasons. 1,000 things happened on that trip. In short, it was an odyssey. When we met with Fidel Castro, he said, "But why are you saying the final game? If they are in the 7th inning, in the game 4, and they're winning 4-0 in San Diego. How is that possible?" Mario Paredes, who's very quick-minded, right away said, "Well, Mr. President, it's for the parade, as that will be the last game if the Yankees won." Then Castro commented, "And to think that the trash that cannot even play here is the best pitcher in the big league in the United States." Anyway, he finally caved and gave his approval. Then we went to the home where El Duque's mother, ex-wife, and 2 daughters live. It was the backyard of a backyard in a very poor area. When we gave them the news, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't stop crying tears of joy. Seeing them, I couldn't help thinking about my own family, my mother, my wife, and my children. Seeing them, I couldn't help seeing my own reflection. I am an immigrant, just like they are. I couldn't help marveling at the fact that God, the physician of souls, had brought Mario and me there to be his instrument and to bring healing and salvation to his daughters. I once ran for president of the medical staff of a hospital. And before the election, a surgeon, a Caucasian surgeon, who was in charge of the election committee, resigned to run against me. And he said, "How could you choose a foreign doctor who can even speak English well, who isn't very familiar with our national regulations, and who barely graduated a couple of years ago?" He spoke first, saying all of those things. Afterwards, I stood up and said, "Now, I really think what he said, he's totally right." First, it was very difficult for my mother to get enough protein and milk so I could be healthy and my brain could develop normally. Then, it was very difficult for my uncle to get me into La Salle to study for my high school so I could receive a Christian education. On top of that, it was very difficult having to go to the capital to study medicine when I didn't know anyone there, and having to work in the sugar cane fields to earn money paying the Haitian workers. Also, at that time, since I didn't know English, I had to study by candlelight to take an English test. And it's true that even now, I still don't speak English very well. You could see that. On top of all of that, I had to come to this country, take all the required exams, and become a specialist in internal medicine. So I could be here standing in front of you today. I think that the doctor is very right. So now let me tell you something. Considering all the things I have gone through and all the obstacles that I have overcome to get to this point, I assure you that no matter what kind of problem we might have here, I'll find a way to solve it because I have faced many problems. His life's been easy. Mine hasn't. That same night, 90% of my colleagues vote for me. Never be afraid to fight for your dreams, even if they seem crazy. And never feel like you are inferior if someone tried to make you feel like a second-class citizen. Don't deny your roots, because they are your true treasure. You know, being immigrant isn't easy. Leaving everything behind and starting fresh is very difficult. But the effort, the integrity, and the ability to overcome obstacles strengthen our character and help us achieve our dreams.